Let's just hang out, Snob Nation. So I want to say that. All right, so my message is out there. So let's talk about some things, okay? Let's get into some really fun stuff. All right, so we're talking about RDJ. We did a thing about that coming back as Doom, of all things. Let me put up the banner so everybody knows what we're talking about. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Sound off in the comments. Let me know. Do you think he should be back? He is not a variant. If you guys haven't heard, it's not going to be a variant of Tony Stark. He's rumored to show up in a new Fantastic Four movie and be a part of that universe, and I guess maybe make it to this universe. That would be a great way to bring the Fantastic Four to our universe. I do think after seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm not going to get too deep in the sponsors, I do think that a big plan is going to be more Secret Wars 2 mixed with Secret Wars, so that way they can end up with one Sacred Timeline universe at some point, maybe. That's a speculation now. An educated wish, if you will. So, and I like the idea of that because bringing Doom in, God Emperor Doom is the better villain out of the two Secret Wars. Let's be real. Listen, I don't take anything away from the Beyonder. I don't take anything away from the original story, which was brilliant. I'm not saying that those characters can't be there, but Doom is an amazing villain. He's an amazing villain. And if you don't know who Doom is, at least go to the Marvel Wiki and read up on him. You know, take like an afternoon and just be like, all right, I'm going to read up a little bit, go to the Wikipedia page, stuff like that. Learn all you can about Dr. Doom and who he is, what he's capable of, what he does, and just how amazing and brilliant a villain. And also Stan Lee's favorite character. He loved Dr. Doom. Maybe not favorite character, favorite villain. Might be favorite villain. I might be getting that mixed up. He has mentioned Dr. Doom as his favorite. I just can't remember if he said villain or he said character. I believe he said character, but I might be wrong about that. So I just want to point that out. I talked about it on the show, on the podcast this week, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that. Will say this. It's here. It is what it is. I'm optimistic in a way. I don't think it's a good casting, only because I think anytime you bring back an actor after such a significant send-off, it diminishes the send-off a little bit. Well, it can a lot of it, but this one doesn't feel like a lot of it. It doesn't take away what happened with Iron Man and Tony Stark. It just a little bit. Because either bring them back, which would still diminish it, or leave it alone. Now, another way I think it could work if they do it, because Robert Downey Jr., let's face facts, a very good actor, and he's, for a long time now, especially later in his life, especially as he's been playing Tony Stark for so long, he has been like trying to get into like outrageous sort of characters. Tropic Thunder, of course, we talked about that a lot, but like this new movie that's coming out, or it's either a movie or TV show, or it's a Max, where he plays all these different or it's one character playing all these different type of disguises and stuff like that, and he's put on different performances. He's a very good actor. He's very good in Oppenheimer. That was an off-brand role for him, and he knocked it out of the park. Like he showed his acting in that. Not that he hasn't before, but like in that, he really showed his acting. Like he was one cool thing I will say about actors. Well, I'll say a lot of things about actors. There's some really good ones out there. And like, I'm just talking on a personal level, knowing people. I'm not talking about celebrity. And the art of acting is very cool. But one cool thing about a film set, if you have an amazing actor on your set, it elevates everyone. And the other actors around them. They're going to give way better performances than if they are on a project that has the same sort of, everybody's sort of at the same level. Nobody's bringing that elevation. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It can sometimes, but it doesn't mean it's bad. And it doesn't mean it takes away from the movie or anything. It's just that they're at that level. And we've all seen it where we've seen movies and we're like, all right, everybody just seems like they're at the same level of acting here. Again, not bad. Sometimes that's amazing. Oppenheimer is one of them. Cillian Murphy is a brilliant actor. Brilliant. I think I think he should have played Dr. Doom, but brilliant, right? And he elevated everyone on that set, not to mention Christopher Nolan there, who just elevates every actor who works with him. But he elevates everyone on that set. And it's not like it was a set of slouches. Everyone in that movie is an amazing all that main cast was just truly a fantastic. Emily Blunt's one of the best actors working. I don't think people give her enough credit. In fact, that scene in Oppenheimer, and this is going to come into play because I'd like to see her join up too. As something, because she could put something really cool in it. But it just made me laugh because it's like, all right, she flipped a switch at one point where she's getting interrogated, and like you see her kind of like, and then like go real fast, real into the eyes. That's a level of acting that not many can achieve at her age. Say what you will, like you can turn, but like I'm talking a face. And I think she's like 39, 38, 39. Like it takes years and years and years to, like, you see a lot of that with actors who are later in life. Like they have it. And like, so she's so good. And then seeing her in other roles where she's really good too. But all that aside, to go back to RDJ, what I'm saying, RDJ is already a great actor. He's great in almost everything he's in. So he was elevated in that movie. This movie coming in, he can bring a performance that's going to be brilliant. And how can it work? All right, in my opinion, if you're going to make it work, keep him in the goddamn armor all the time. Never remove him from his armor. Use his voice. He can make a new voice if he wants. I don't care. He should have an accent. It should be Latvia. But if he never removes his armor, right? I'm not saying you can't show glimpses of him when working with Reed or something like that, or he has a life model decoy. But the Robert Downey Jr. playing the real Dr. Doom, if he is in fact the real Dr. Doom, or they're setting this up as sort of like he's in the two movies and then the Dr. Doom is such a rich character. He should be around forever and ever. He should never sign somebody on to two movies, because what if he doesn't want to do it? He's older now. What if he just gives up and he is amazing and he keeps it on? That's another reason I'm not thrilled about it. But if he comes back and he is just in the armor, he's just in the mask, the real Dr. Doom, every time we see the real Dr. Doom on screen, and we know he's out there, and we know he is not taking off that armor, I truly think that it could work, because we'll forget about. But that's what bothers me about. I mean, hopefully he changed. But like, I love what they did in the MCU, and we're gonna get real here for a second. A lot of people are gonna disagree with me. I liked Iron Man as a kid. I didn't really read the comic books, but I liked the cartoon. I did read the comics, and I read the Avengers. So don't give me shit like I don't know who he is. But wasn't a draw to Iron Man. I just wasn't. And I'm going to give you a little heads up for anybody who may not remember. Nobody was. People read Iron Man. People liked Iron Man. And the people who were like, well, I read Iron Man, you were in the minority. Not everyone did. It wasn't huge. He was a big character in it. And honestly, you could argue that wasn't even really until Civil War. Like, he always existed. He was always an Avenger. He was always there. Don't get me wrong. He's a main player. He is not some slouch side character. You know, he's not the Red Tornado of Marvel, all right? Which I like Red Tornado, don't get me wrong. But you see what I'm saying? Like, he's a main player, and he always has been since he's been there. More so since the Avengers and Iron Man both existed as comics. It picked up. He needed that little boost to the Avengers, I think, for his character. But again, great storylines, great character. Glad he exists. Thought it was great casting with Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. kicked this whole thing off. It's hard to argue with him. The only thing I could argue with is maybe he's Marvel. We'll see after Dr. Doom. But if you look at it from that point of view, he comes in, he makes these great characters. But beforehand, Iron Man was not as popular. You liked him if you were a comic fan, but you didn't really think about him if you weren't. You know, and I talked to a lot of comic fans, and before this movie, not many, other than Civil War and a couple of the other big beats, they never talked about him in Infinity Gauntlet because he's barely in it. He's a side character. And, you know, like Wolverine was more of a character than he was. And that's not by much, you know, like now granted, that was a big piece where a lot of people were meant to shine, but he was important enough to consider to be there, to be in the fight. But he had maybe one line in the whole goddamn comic. So like, when we get to this and we built this whole thing off of him, Iron Man is very different. You know, I mean, there's a lot of similarities, but it's very different. It was adapted differently. I'm perfectly okay with it. I like how they've been adapting it. So we'll see what happens with Dr. Doom. However, long story short, not really, but long story short, you come back, he barely wore the fucking suit. Every passing movie, he wore less of a suit. And they actually, yes, I love that they adapted it so it could come on him quicker, but it went off of him quicker, and he barely wore it. I saw Iron Man's Tony Stark face more than I saw his mask. Now, am I arguing about that in his time in Marvel? No. I like Tony. I liked Iron Man in the movies. It worked. Seeing a big star like what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. not have the mask on. I get it. He's good looking. He's pulling it off. He's fun. You want to see his facial expressions. That's not Dr. Doom. It's not. And they've fucked up Dr. Doom quite a bit already in movies. And I just like that. I think that's what scares myself. And if I can speak for fans, I think that's what scares the most, is that we are well aware that as fans, not saying me, I like them, but we are well aware as fans that when certain actors are cast in iconic roles, we can be very divided, or we can be very mean. We hate it, and we let everyone know. especially in the age of the internet. They did it with Michael Keaton when he was Batman. They did it with Heath Ledger, who I think was amazing. All amazing. I've always seen it, and then people like it. It's almost like being a Doctor Who fan. Like the new Doctor comes in, you hate him until you love him, and then he leaves, and then you hate the next one until you love him or her. So it's one of those things where it's like, he never kept the goddamn mask on. He really didn't. And I'm fine with that with Iron Man because he wasn't a hugely popular character. Doctor Doom is known for having the mask for a specific reason. There's actual reason for it. And it's canon and it's written. So we won't see anything until the first movie comes out. We won't know what it's going to be. We won't know how it's going to work out. But I'm just saying that in hopes with him coming back, keep the goddamn mask on. Keep the armor on. Let's see it. Let's have fun with it. Now let's get into something else. Actually, I want to see what James has to say. James MCD Reviews is here. The man knows his stuff, and I'm talk about it. You know, people stuck. Stay safe, man. I appreciate you, brother. I still not completely sure how to feel, other than that this is the most confusing reveals Marvel has ever done. It is. It really is. Between RDJ and the Russos returning, it really smacks of please don't leave. I'm going to say something that people aren't really going to like, especially Marvel fans. I like the Russo brothers. I'm glad they're back. They have the caliber to handle movies like this with casts this big, especially egos. And behind the scenes, you may not think it's important, but directors deal with a lot of egos. They have, a lot of them have their own too. You're wrong, but they deal with so many egos that they have to pull performances out, and it's understandable when you're an actor. And this is just looking at it from a small amount of experience compared to many. You are dealing with so many emotions that you have to play with at any given time because you're just prepping for whatever this scene is, whatever that emotion calls for, and prepping for the next scene that you have to shoot, while technically having to deal with everything in your head, having to pull it. So ego gets there. Plus you're, in most cases, celebrities, things like that. So directors have to play with that. They also have their own egos, and the producers have to deal with that. It all goes up the link. All goes right there. Now with the Russo brothers don't really have anything I would say is overly memorable besides the 4 Marvel movies. I mean, I'm not saying that the Gray Man wasn't cool. They had some cool action. And I actually kind of dug the story in The Gray Man. Like, I liked his motivations, Ryan Gosling's motivations in it. So I like the Russo brothers. I like the Extraction movies, which I know, I think it was Joe Russo. Might have been Anthony. I'm not sure. I have to look. But Joe Russo, I think, wrote those. And I thought they were pretty good. The action is there. It's stuntman oriented. I think there's room for that. I think that, like Fall Guy or other movies that are very stunt centric, I think you need those. I think you need to have all areas of movies. That should be its own genre, almost, of stunt-centric movies. And I think they do a really good job with that. I think they do a really good job putting together stunt-centric movies. They make fun action movies. Not all of them are great, but they're fun, and that's needed. That's warranted. Can they do this movie? Fuck yeah, they can do this movie. I'm not going to argue about it. Are they the best choice for the movie? Maybe. Again, I don't have an agenda here. This with the Russos, it's not like me saying, like, but I think it's going to... I might have thoughts, but again, it's all speculation until we see. I'm not even worried about Robert Downey Jr. with no costume giving a great performance. He will. But is it one that we're going to hold dear? Because if you go back and you watch those movies, he is in that costume a good goddamn in the first movie, and that in all the subsequent movies that he's playing Iron Man in them. Like, he was in the Hulk when he wasn't playing Iron Man. He didn't have that suit. But Avengers, he's wearing the suit quite a bit. Not a lot. I'd actually have to watch it to see if he's wearing the suit more or less than when he's in person. I would venture to guess it's less, because, like I said, that was by the time the second movie had come out and a couple of things, and he, over time, less and less suit time. So by the time you get to it, it's just Tony Stark, and I love it. All right. So, but with that, the Russos, I'm anxious to see. I think this is where they really excel. I love them on Community as well. I just don't. It could be hit or miss, and plus, I think it's going to depend on the script. I think my hesitation with the Russo brothers is they had 2 movies to set up for Infinity War and Endgame. 2 movies over the course of 5 or 6 years where they worked with a lot of directors. They knew the whole story. They were involved in the MCU. They were really there. They were putting all of the hope, Kevin Feige and the rest of MCU were putting all of that on them to direct those 2 movies. So they were slated. We knew about them years before it came out. Now we'll know about them. We know about them years before this are going to come out. But they have not really been a part of it. They have not really been a part of the, and it feels like a disconnect. And even Robert Downey Jr. feels like a disconnect, which it should have. They left after the event, and bringing him back is okay. But it just feels like too much of a disconnect. There's been too much bad for you to finally bring back in to try and fix things that there's not a lot of faith. And I'm hoping the faith will come back. But I am so excited to get to Doom and get out of this multiverse. And I never thought I would say, like, here's the thing. Can multiverse work in movies? I hear a lot of people say, no, it doesn't work. It's too easy. It's too this. It's too that. I would actually hard argue that it's easy because you have a lot and you can do anything. But it's hard because when you're creative and you have that much freedom, I think a lot of creativity, great creative ideas and projects that have come out, things like that, started with the idea that it's under restraints. A lot of these breakout scripts that blow up, they do it because they did something that was interesting, because they couldn't write a script that could fit the budget that they had in their mind. And those limitations definitely, I think, help make better stories because they challenge you. And movies, when you're writing them, or anything you're writing, if it's not challenging you or your thoughts, you're never going to make it work. It's too easy then. It's got to be challenging for you. If you're not asking while you're writing, and I'm just going to go by script here, but this works for books, this works for articles, reviews, everything. If you're not asking, like in reviews and nonfiction and stuff like that, like it's not really asking what your character's doing. You need to be more asking, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to do here? When I'm writing reviews, like I'll write my first draft and I never do paragraphs. I just write it, free write. What did I think about this movie? Blah, 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 blah. Then I go in and I'm refining it. Well, I say this here and I say this here, blah, 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 blah. I realize I'm spiraling into a writing thing, but you guys want to know more about writing? Join up. We can do an AMA. Ask me all you want. But let's go back to the topic at hand. So they haven't been involved. They haven't been, like, almost for lack of a better term, breeding these characters, like Iron Man in Civil War, Captain America starting from Winter Soldier, all of these. So that when we get to it, we know who the main focuses are. We know where we're going. This seems like oversight, if I'm being real. It seems like oversight, and it was like, get them back, all costs. I don't give a shit. And $80 million for Robert Downey Jr. to come back for 2 movies? First of all, we should have stuck with Kang. If we're going to ride this multiverse out, I'm going to say it right out. We should stick with Kang. Ride him out, but find a new actor. We have done it a million times. I don't know why the MCU is so afraid. And I'm not saying that you can't. And I'm not saying that you can't pass the baton. You can. And I'm not even talking about Black Panther. I'm saying the MCU, Disney in general, seem to have a big issue with recasting Black actors because they don't want to get hits for it. Like, if you recast Black actor, that might be some sort of racial connotation. We understand why Jonathan Majors, like, I'm not saying we understand. That's a whole big issue. But I understand why a business with all the stake going into this villain played by this actor has this big turmoil in his life, and that's upending a lot of things. They have to part ways. That's what I understand. I understand having to part ways as a business, doing what you got to do. Again, going back to my earlier, you got to find your piece and move forward. And if somebody is not in a peaceful mode, sorry, I can't help you at this moment and I got to move forward. I wish you all the best. And that's what they're doing. Now, does that suck for Jonathan Majors? Yeah, I do think it sucks. Very good actor, but it is what it is. No matter what the outcome was, what you put yourself in a situation, and that could have gotten you fired at any job. That's a reality for almost every human being on this planet. If what he did, any one of us did, even if it's just accusations or whatever else, and it was all that, but even if he, whatever it was, we would all be fired. We see it all the time. And it sucks, it really does. Like, I'm not saying but we shouldn't have that type of control. We didn't. Disney chose this. Disney realized, like, all right, this is in the news. We can't have it. We got to move forward. But they didn't move forward. That's my point here. They didn't move forward. You got rid of the guy, but you didn't move forward. You didn't say, okay, we're going to take back our IP though. Why do we drop IPs the second? And don't tell me Kang wasn't working. It wasn't Kang that was working. It was your scripts that weren't working. Because Kang was good in it. Should Kang have lost to giant ants and Ant-Man? No, but it's your scripts. It's not him. And the character was working. People were excited to see where it was going to go. And it works and it fits. And you could have recast Coleman Domingo, and I'm just talking black actors, and Idris Elba. John, I said from the beginning, John Washington David. David Washington. I'm sorry, John David Washington. I knew that was wrong because I'm sitting there. I'm like, no, it's not saying about David. Is Denzel's son. So you have all of these prominent great actors, or making a black female. I don't care. Just give us the character. I don't give a shit who you cast. Just, well, I hope you cast somebody good, and don't cast RDJ in that character either. But see, this is where I'm going to argue this. Let me go back to what you're saying. James said, I'm glad the Russos are back too. It feels very cynical on a surface level, bringing them back now. I agree. I feel like they're trying to get the next Avenger movie as quick as possible rather than expand on the characters and streamline the story properly, which is all oversight. Get an Avengers movie out. We need an Avengers movie out. Why? Because we're not selling Avengers merchandise. We have a ton of it. It's becoming disgusting. Marvel is Disney-fied. I don't care what anybody says. My son, and I realize I'm part of the problem because I was so pissed when I saw this. My son has a pair of pajamas that has all the superheroes on it. That's not a problem. And it's a nice pair of pajamas, but right in the middle it says Marvel. That's my problem. Marvel. My son is no longer wearing a superhero on his shirt like we used to want to do, but get beat up for. He's no longer wearing a superhero on his shirt. He's wearing he's wearing backgrounds like outline superheroes and a giant red and white sign that says Marvel. That is Disney to the T. Disney sells that. Disney went from, and I'm talking about them being the worst of it, but Disney went from, all right, we'll make merchandise, we'll make toys because that's going to make a lot of money, to we are the merchandise. You're going to buy something that says Marvel. And when I saw them, like, when I wore comic book character shirts when I was a kid, it's because I looked up to those characters. I looked up to what they stood for. I looked up to who they are. I aspired to be like them in values. I aspired to be like them in helping people. Watching somebody wear a Marvel, even my son wearing a Marvel, that's not aspiring. That's not inspiring. That's nothing. What, you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, get the fuck, do you think, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know the guy, but I don't think, and I truly choose to believe this about Stan Lee. I don't think Stan Lee wanted anybody wearing a Marvel shirt. I think he wanted him wearing a Captain America or Spider-Man or something. I think he wanted the characters, these entities that he helped create. Same with Jack Kirby. Do you think Jack Kirby wants, I mean, they passed away, they don't care, but at the same time, if they were alive, do you think they'd want somebody just wearing a Marvel shirt? Unless they worked for him? No, or kids, really, like, all that stuff. It's like, we're not selling what the heroes used to stand for. We're selling merchandise. That's what it is. There's no care. And like, listen, I sell merchandise. I get it. I'm not trying to be hypocritical, but I'm okay with being hypocritical sometimes because it means I'm fucking changing. But anyway, that's just me. But like, I sell merchandise, but when I put care and thought into what I do. Now, if I'm a billion-dollar Disney conglomerate, do I care about every little bit? I don't know. I'm never going to be that. It's never going to happen. And it's not, nor do I want to be that. But like, I put thought and care into it. And I'm never going to sell you something that is just a red brick that says the Scene Snobs across it, because especially when I have great characters. So you could no, that was a terrible plug, but I didn't mean for it to be. It just kind of went that way. I use myself as an analogy, and it never goes well. My point on it is, like, we see all this stuff. We're bringing all these characters back. We're doing all this. Stop putting your fucking company's name on this shit and start putting your fucking characters on it again and push what they stand for. Maybe I'll be a little bit happier about it. But go back, because I went on my rant there. Kang, I think he should have been brought back. Even if he was brought back or recast and brought back as more of a side character, and you want to build up Doom, but you're streamlining and you're rushing it. Every great villain in the MCU in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 was built up perfectly over the course of years, and you loved it and you adapted them perfectly. Now you're not adapting them well. Now you're not playing with them. You're not positioning them well within there. And we have no great villains. And you think just because you say the word Doom and now recast one of our favorite characters played by one of our favorite actors who played him, you're recasting another favorite character for comic book geeks and people who love Doom with that same actor. Listen, I understand the ramifications of having Tony Stark's face on a bad guy, but it's not worth it. Why? Because I didn't need any of the heroes' faces on, with the exception of maybe Winter Soldier, which was a set storyline already. I didn't need Thor's face on Loki. I didn't need anyone's face on Thanos. Like it didn't have to bring back people. You didn't have to bring back famous characters, stuff like that. That's all I'm really thinking about now. Like the father of the MCU is now a villain. So that's my rant on it. I think they should have stuck with Kang, got out of the multiverse, did the 2 Avengers movies with their new cast. No matter how they did, with some integrity, you can bring back old stuff too, old characters and such too. And then if you want to bring in Doom that way. Bring in Doom where maybe he takes over, and by Secret Wars, he has got Emperor Doom. He took over Kang. Now you got Kang out of the way. It was Doom who did it. Now even more reason. You just built out Kang as this holy mecca of scariness, the Kang dynasty, which you're going to build. Now it's Doomsday. That's another thing too. Every time you change your movies over the course of the years, it gets convoluted and we don't want to do it. So regardless, bring back Kang. Doom kills him, or Doom figures out a way. They have to work with Doom, figures out a way to kill Kang, and then he takes the power, which is exactly what Doom would do in certain situations. That's because it's what he wants. So that's just it for me. On RDJ. Kang lost a lot of hype over Quantumania. I think it's a bad thing to pivot from him, which is sad for Jonathan Majors because he was really good. Jonathan Majors was really good, but you can get other great actors to be a part of it. And that was my big thing. It was like, we're going back to the well for no reason whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too much at this point. Like, even one time this big was just too much, but it wasn't one time because Anthony Russo and Joe Russo coming back is going back to the well. There's other talk going on that I can't really talk about, but if you join our Patreon on the paid tier, we have movie news for you, and you can go check it out there.